I just want to start before I start saying anything. I just want to say feel free through my story. If it traumatizes you, please walk off, take a deep breath, come back when you're really fully ready. My story is deep, but my journey is of healing. So I was born with a fairy tale that you didn't know would turn into a nightmare. But later on in your journey, turned into a fairy tale you once acknowledged. To live in the body of a survivor is to never be able to leave the scene of a crime. I cannot ignore the fact that I lived in it. Here is my fairy tale. My name is Jennifer Mendez. I am 34 years old, Hispanic female. I have two beautiful boys and a small puppy. Here is how all women and young girls' fairy tales turns into a nightmare very quickly. Here's my nightmare. At age of 18 to 25, I encountered with a charming man, smooth talking. Yes, very smooth talking for sure. But a monster. I'll tell you why. This what marked a turning point in my life, leading me down of a path of unimaginable hardship of human trafficking. This sets a foundation for the compelling story of my resilience and strength over adversity. The unfold events reveal a tragic tale of manipulation and abuse, where the connection of someone you thought you loved after a year of romance took a dark turn. Wow. I was beat with anything you can imagine. If it was near him, he would use it. I woke up in certain days with black eyes that won't go away. It took weeks to fade. He made me do what I didn't want to do. What I didn't want to do, I became a pawn to the dark game. Walking the streets, cars would stop, and I'll sell myself short, feeling an overwhelming sense of worthless. One memory remains repeating in my mind still up to today. But much like yesterday, a man handed me $120, but the money couldn't wash off the disgust I had of myself. He touched me in ways that left me embarrassed and violated. Yes, that guy in the red car. There was nights when the monster forced me to take desperate measures, throwing me to cars, exploding me in ways, refusing meant brutal beatings, leaving me with no choice but to endure the horrors drawn upon me. I'm in chilling winters, a gun was pointed at me. I was robbed, raped, and put in a chokehold where I woke up not knowing what happened to me. But did he care? No, I was thrown out into a 20 below weather, naked and painful heels on my feet. Instead, this is all I heard as he drives down, staring at me, making sure I was doing what he said I was supposed to, turns into a life I could never choose. Facing unimaginable violence and threats paints a dark picture of challenges I endured. We traveled many states, many criminal charges came with this. With nights in a jail cell, I asked myself, who can I trust? Who can I run to? How can I leave this situation? The feeling of isolation, the fear that came onto me, I preferred to be dead. Waking up nights and days where I cried, asking myself, why am I still alive? Times where I tried to cutting myself to let the blood drain down to the floor. But there is Anna. She also suffered just like me in a life we didn't ask for. Because making an escape seem impossible, my courage in sharing these painful experiences is a testament to my strength I have today. One day I woke up, he wasn't home or watching me finally. I left, I ran so fast. I didn't look back. I told myself I'd rather be dead than to be there and feel dead already. What was that for? As I was set up from someone I thought once was my friend, I guess wasn't. We went out for drinks and all I could hear is footsteps. Boom, boom, boom. I look back, my heart starts really beating. It was the monster. He threw me into a two-door car and beats me as I fight for my lifeless life, leaving my chest with every breath. Yes, no one saved me, and the driver just kept driving. All I see is blood. I'm weak. I thought I could get over it. Just kill me already. I couldn't fight no more. I gave up that time. I seen a white light. I thought it was it, but I guess God had a purpose for me. My escapes from relentless cycles of abuse and bravery, it turned into run and pursuit, and the eventual intentions by my brother, my protector, John. It impacted my life. He saved me with one phone call. My family finally see me again. I didn't look the same though. But the tears in their face expressed showed me I didn't even want to know what I looked like after being beat almost to death. As my son stated, I'll kill him when I get older and stronger. I'll tell you, Mom. As he fed me with a straw with everything I drunk or ate for the last 3 months, I lost who I was, what I'm worth, the resilience displayed during my healing process, supported by the love of my family, especially my son. That chapter as a mother and her child not understanding what mommy faced and why she is in prison, he will never understand that. He's too young to. As life unfolded, presents unformable scene of hurdles. At the age of 1, me and his dad parting ways and making it the beginning of a journey filled with trials. The scars of his absent weigh heavy on his heart. The scars of my absent weigh heavy on his heart. And he faced doubting task of rebuilding a connection fractured by circumstances beyond my control. He resentment, the pain echoed in his words, painting me as a mom who had missed crucial moments. I suffered in ways I couldn't show. Sometimes I'll just cry. When he tells me how horrible a mom I was, I felt every word and I seen every pain. I was a worthless, no good mom. He painted the picture of me to be. Well, that's what I thought I was, at least. Faces 6 years in and out of incarceration is where I found God. I didn't take his name serious. I said to myself many nights, if he was real, why I went through this? Hell. But then I heard this song. This is what the first day I felt something different in prison walls. Church here, it goes. If you know this song, please put it in your head. It's called The Best in Me. The song that goes, I saw the best in me. When everyone was around, he didn't see the best in me. So that's Marvin Sapp. You can always play it. I was gonna try to play it, but my phone is not letting me. But the only highlights and strength of my ongoing journey, I refuse to surrender my fear. Each stride forwards bring me to nearer to the healing and redemption that my voice holds the power to shatter, silence, and ignite change. Upon regaining my freedom, I embraced a profound mission to heal and uplift survivors just like myself. Through Exodus, I created a support group. I became a beacon of hope, granting voices to those silenced by trauma. Today, I stand tall as a survivor, not a victim. With 25 misdemeanors expunged and an overwhelming faith, I wave my narrative of resilience and renewal. In depths of despair, I held onto hope. After 7 long years, I reclaimed custody of my beloved son and welcome a precious addition to our family. From that moment on, I made a commitment to keep moving forward. My journey has not been easy, but it has to been worth it. I started at Exodus where I've been spent 5 years, growing from a youth mentor to a case manager and now a housing specialist. I once found myself in a shelter, but through that persistence and hard work, I now have my own 3-bedroom apartment. Most important, I'm continuing my education, not just for myself, but to show others that it's never too late to turn your life around. If I can do it, so can you. Life is too short. Know your worth and what you live for. Don't stop your goals. Thank you, everyone, for listening to my story, and I hope y'all liked it.
Well, we all found your story really touching, and I was wondering if you could share how something like this could happen to you. Who you're obviously very insightful and talented, and now you uplift others. So, how did this even begin? That you met this person and you were so young. How could you have fallen into this cycle?
I was going through challenges. I had my first son. My mom was going through eviction. And I started to sell waters as I was 17 years old, just to kind of keep myself going and keep income coming. And during me selling waters, he was driving in the highway and kind of stopped me. And I was like, yeah, sure, take my number. And through the number, he was like this support system that I didn't know that I had. So it was more manipulating. So it was more like, I have this for you, I have this for you, I can give you this. Your son needs this. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like amazing, right? Like I'm about to be evicted, be in a shelter. Me, my baby father is going on and off. He's been cheating on me. Like this is not working for me. And then I found someone else thinking that that was a bigger support system. And from there, it turned into like a beautiful thing. Like we was always hanging out for the first year. He was giving me money. He was doing this, that, and the third. And then one day he just introduced me to a girl, and I'm just like, hey, so I'm naive, and I'm just like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, yeah, this is such and such. So I'm thinking he's introducing me as being his girl and the person that's been involved with him for the last year. And then I started to hang out with the girls, and then one day he just smacked her, and I was just like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you hitting her? And then that was the day that it started. It was just like, shut up. Like, who are you to say anything? And then he smacked me, and I was just like, oh no, I'm not dealing with this. And then it became from one smack to beatings, and then to threats, and then to 7 years in the road of going through this.
Wow. Does anyone have any questions that you'd like to ask Jennifer now? I'm just wondering, because you were going through economic struggles with eviction, and I guess you couldn't count on any support at home to share.
Correct.
Okay. And then there was no support at school, obviously.
Well, I was in and out of school because I was a pregnant teen, 17 years old, with rarely any support to take care of my child. Me and my baby father had a schedule down pat, and the schedule didn't come out. He was young as well. So he was in the streets, and I couldn't really do anything about controlling that. So I became a single mom, even though I had a baby father at the moment. And then, he was constantly outside just cheating on me and stuff like that. So that kind of made me go into like, okay, I have to figure it out. Like I have to figure out what this looked like for me. And before my mom get kicked out this apartment, because she was already packing up to leave. And she's like, well, we got a month left to leave, but I'm starting to go into the shelter. And then she was like, you have to figure out what are you doing, because you have to take your family to do whatever's best for you. And that was my next route, was to go with him and try to live with him after the year, but then end up turning bad. So I ended up giving my baby father like, hey, can you keep the kid? It's not safe here. And until I get myself together, and it landed for 7 years of me losing my son and stuff like that throughout the process.
So, okay, so now you made a turnaround, which I think is really important because you talked about, how you work to uplift others. And my students want to know, what was the turning point where you said, oh, I know that you found God, because you said, you found God while incarcerated. So how did you find God? And then how did that turn into real actions that you could take that made you feel like there was hope?
So what made me feel like there was hope is that I already felt dead in the relationship. I already felt like being there, he would kill me. So being out wouldn't be no difference. Um, when I tried to first leave, I went to Miami, but I know a lot of people out there. And then he found out that I was out there because I was trying to run away. He found out that I was out there. So one of my friends was like, hey, leave, because he signed a note out here that if anybody finds you, to beat you to death and bring you back to him. And she was like, please just leave. Like, I don't want to see anything happen to you. So my flight was the next day, and I actually was like, I am leaving. Like, you don't have to tell me anything twice. And I left. And then the next day she hit me. She was like, I'm so glad you left Miami, because he came back and he's here in Miami looking for you. And then that turned the turning point. So I left and I never went back. But what made me turn around and say I can't do this is that I felt dead in there. So it was like either I stood and died, or I fought and left and died anyways. So I felt either way, I probably would have been dead. So at this point, what feared me the most that let me last 7 years is that my family. He would constantly threaten my kid, harming my kid, harming my mom, harming my dad, my brother, harming my family in general. Like if I was to leave, that this is what it will come up to. That my family will probably be dead because of me. And then I couldn't bear to swallow that. Like I prefer to be here and getting beaten than me leave and something happens to my family and then I can't take that pill to swallow. Like, because of me, something happened dangerously to my family. And my family had no clue what was going on because we couldn't have this conversation. It was like, if your family knew, if you even ran to your family, like this will happen. So it was a consistent like manipulation and threats that kind of scared me. And even getting arrested, and lawyers trying to speak to me about it, it will be like, no, ain't nothing going on. And then they'll be like, all right, well, if nothing going on, then you could just be rot in hell and rot as a prostitute in jail, right? And in the back of my head, I will get emotional and tell my lawyer, like, wow, this is the support that we get, right? Like, if y'all know the type of fear that even women through human trafficking with pimps or wannabe pimps, and even through domestic violence, right? It's a fear, right? That's the reason why we stick it around. It's a fear that we go through that we don't know how to leave it. And it affects a lot of people. And if we don't have that support system through the criminal justice, how do we feel safe? If we don't feel safe in our own family's house because the person knows where my family lives, or if we don't feel safe going in to talk to a lawyer because what the lawyer's gonna do? Oh, we're gonna catch him because it's still going on to this day, right? Like, we're gonna catch him. It's just getting a little stronger with authority, but we're gonna catch him and we're gonna just put you over here. Don't worry about it. It will never happen again. But how many women die behind it? Talking to lawyers and talking to judges and expressing their domestic violence and what they go through and their fear. And then all they get is, don't worry about it. We will help you. And then you will hear them, you know, dead a week later because of the abusive relationship or the human trafficking. Um, so that was just my thing. That's the reason why I never left. And then when I decided to get courage to say, you know what, I can't do this. I'm just gonna finally tell my family what's going on so they could have their back and protect if they see him at all times. Um, but I'm already dead either or, whether I'm in it or out. And I can't live like this no more. I'm not gonna die without a fight. So
Okay, so I was just wondering, we had spoken about your change of thinking. So you felt dead and you had no choice. Like, I understand that, but then you got some support. So in prison, we have rehabilitation and support services. So where did that start? Because you told me about Fortune Society. It's like there was a spiritual source of support from them and then circles of support. Maybe we could talk about that because that might be some
so
area.
yeah, sure. So for me was when I went to prison, it called a turning point that I was kind of tired of going through this because after prison is when I decided to run. Um, so it called a turning point, and he always named these words like you will be nothing without me. And at one point, people don't understand is when you use that to yourself, you feel what the person tells you. That's called mental abuse. Um, so he mentally abused me. So when I finally left and I called the service to leave, that's the first thing I told myself. Oh my God, I'm not good enough because I'm not with him. I don't know what to do right now because I'm not with him. And that was a thing I was telling myself until I noticed that I am better than that. Right. And then I met with my friend Anna. She used to always, first the detectives used to come and knock at my door. It was like, are you ready to talk? And I used to close the door on them because I wasn't ready. Right. Everybody heals in their own time. And me just leaving and reiterating what I just been through would have crushed me more than me just leaving at that center. So I closed the door and I said I wasn't ready. My friend Anna had she was going through the same thing. She kind of ran away from him. He ended up threatening the family, all that. He came to our house. The boyfriend and everybody staying strong in front of him and was like, you ain't touching nobody, you ain't killing us, we just gonna go to war. So he stopped chasing her. But she ended up walking up to me and calling me one day and was like, every day she'll call me, whenever you're ready, I'm willing to help you. But I was still traumatized. So I didn't want to leave my house. I was kind of afraid of who I was. I was kind of numbed to my past. I felt not worth it. I felt worthless, not worth saving. Because of the disgust I felt on myself. And then one day I took her advice and I decided to give her a call. We cried on the phone for hours. And she said, Jen, I want to help you. Please come into my office and let's speak. She gave me a part-time job at Exodus, which I never knew in my life I could work because of my background, because of my education level, and she gave me that change. From that change, she was my supporter at that one moment. And she said, whenever you're ready to speak to the detectives about your past, I want to sit down with you. And I want to be there and hold your hand through the process. I know what it was. I did it by myself as well. So it took me some time, and then like 6 months in, I called the detective. He said, wow, you're calling me. I'm glad you're ready. We came in, and even through the process, the detective now is listening and decided to tell me, Jennifer, whenever you're ready, you could pause, you could take your time. We're not going nowhere. And I took that and I said, and then the first question they asked me is, how can we make the system better for you and other women like you could feel safer? That made me feel ease because now at one point, somebody really cared about women's safety instead of saying, well, you didn't go through this, so we're just going to put you through a system or we're not going to care less about you. So that made me open up to my conversation. Then I met Sanctuary for Families. They supported me with income, with gift cards, housing, case management. They cleared 25 misdemeanors of mine. They supported me with legal services. They even covered the tattoo I had of him so I wouldn't remember him. So everything that reminded me of my past was something that I was supported with. Finally, I felt free. And through that process of feeling free, which is still a struggle, right? It's not much of a struggle now. But I used to do a lot of speaking engagements because I had to talk to lawyers, I had to talk to judges, I had to talk to DAs. And when I noticed that they cared, my story became stronger. And I was like, wow, I can tell my story without being so hurt. It's actually healing me more than it's hurting me. And then I ended up getting promoted so many times. And then I ended up doing a group for women through the same trauma as I'm going through. And it was more of a support group that supported me through my healing journey, as well as others that's going through the same thing as I am. Through that process, I found myself and I learned that I'm worth somebody. I have a voice this time and no one is going to silence me. I've been silenced all my life. And now that I have a voice where people is able to hear me and able to tell me what do I need to do to make this better for other women, it made me feel like I had finally a voice to be able to protect others like myself. So that what made me strong. And then in the journey of that process, I started to find God. And I started to say, God, you had a purpose for me. And if this is the purpose, help me find love again, help me find myself, and help me be able to forgive myself before I could forgive others. And what made me forgive is that he's facing 15 years now. And even though he's incarcerated, it doesn't make me feel any better. It makes me feel like a monster in the beginning. Like, oh man, this person, even though he did so much damage to me, but because my journey with God, I had to learn to forgive and understand that everybody has their own traumas and the reason why they do things. So that was my journey of healing and how I started to heal my healing process now.
Yeah, that is really very revealing how people caring made such a big difference, like in you telling your story and caring, and then how you had confidence every time you spoke. I have two great questions over here. One is from a student, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, you can read it or I could read it. It's up to you. You could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I can read it. Thank you so much. I just want to say, Jennifer, for
You're
being
welcome.
here. Genuinely, it's such a powerful thing to share your story, and I really appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome.
Clearly, it's a very personal story, so I know, yeah, I just really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. You introduced yourself by saying that you're a Hispanic woman, as am I. So I was wondering how you think that identity as a Hispanic woman and a woman of color has shaped or influenced this experience.
Can you elaborate more like of what you're trying to get out of me in that
Yeah,
question?
like,
Just so I can understand better.
yeah, like, so do you think that do you think that being a Hispanic woman or a woman of color influenced, or I don't know, changed the outcome, has affected the way that your your story went? Or do you think that your story would have been the same either way, even if
It
that
would.
was who you are?
It probably would have been the same either way. The only reason why I say it is because as I was in it for 7 years and I seen all type of cultures and races and everybody was going through the same pattern, majority. Um, so some people go in with force, some people go in with being manipulated into the reason why they should do it. Which I don't judge anyone, but at the same time, it is I don't feel like if I would have been white or if I would have been Indian or anything other culture, that wouldn't happen to me. At that moment, being in that highway and meeting him, it was down to happen whether if I was black, white, or Hispanic or any other culture. But good question.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much for that. So then we also have Sandra Custer who has a few questions. Sandra,
Yeah.
can you unmute?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your powerful story. We're all just listening and taking it all in. Thank you for sharing this with us today. I'd love to learn more. I know that you mentioned a few supportive individuals, supportive organizations that were there for you after incarceration in terms of getting employment and having some income. Could you share more about your life after coming home and, what support services were available in terms of getting your life restarted, finding housing, getting custody of your children, finding steady and stable income, and what can universities do like Adelphi in order to support women and women that have been impacted by the justice system?
Thank you. You said the last part, because I would have brought back to my life, but to learn how to deal with people that's been justice impacted, I think is a listening ear, right? Sometimes because people state that they don't know what it is to be justice impacted, you're still justice impacted in a way if you have family individuals that's been in the system. To me, it's more listening. Like if you're becoming a lawyer or a doctor and you want to be able to fight this case, it's listening to someone, right? Because there's people out here that's going through the worst and worst and sometimes get into situations or through situations that they don't want to be in, but they're put in that situation because of that reason. But that doesn't make them different than another person that's trying to do the good part. So to me, like to support is just listening and understanding and putting yourself in that person's shoes and really listening, like, and putting yourself there. Like, wow, if that was to happen to me, this is what I would want. Or if that was to happen to me, this is how I want somebody to fight for me. Right? Because everybody is not to be fighting for. But then you got individuals that is willing, you have to fight for it because they need that fight. They need that courage. So for instance, for me, when I came home and I ran, I had to tell myself, like, it took me a while. It took me like a year to be able to have the courage to start going outside and be able to fight for my child because my son's father didn't believe. He only believed what he thought he knew, which was I was this prostitute to the States, but not knew what I was going through to become named that. So when I went to the shelter system and stuff like that, I mean, when I went to the court system, he downgraded me as a woman, as a mother, and didn't acknowledge that my son was still getting everything he needed. I just couldn't be there physically because of the trials and tribulations I was going through at that moment that wasn't safe for my child. So I told the judge, like, Judge, that's not me. I am totally a different person. And, that was something I went through and it was a part of my life before. And then he was like degrading me, like, oh, she's a prostitute and this is what she does for money. And because the judge was a woman, she looked at me and she could look and understand that it didn't look that I was that type of bad mother. And she was like, you're gonna stop downgrading women in my courtroom rather than acknowledging the mother she was once. And that brought a lot of me. Like it brought me down. And all I asked for at first was weekend custody instead of weekday because it was hard for me to try to get my life together and just see my son for a couple of hours during the week. And he denied it because of my background. And then she said, if you don't give it to him, give it to her, then I would just have to give her full custody. And he gave me all of it. He said, I don't want her with the weekends, so she can get whatever she asks for. And then even having my child back, it was challenges. In and out of incarceration and finding myself back into motherhood, it was the most challenging thing because we would get into arguments, and the first thing he would say is, you're not even my mom. You abandoned me. I don't trust you. Why should I love you? And these are questions that I had to sit down and ask him, like, was I ever a bad mom? And it's okay to tell me how you feel. That's okay. Feel how you want to feel. I did feel like whatever you're feeling is the truth. I did abandon you. I wasn't a good mom for the last 7 years. I was in and out of incarceration. But when you get older enough to understand, I will explain everything to you. But at this age, you're not old enough to understand what I've been through. And it's okay to feel how you feel. Just give me a chance as your mom to be a better mom. And look at the me now than what I did before. And even from this day, my son is almost 18, and the challenges still occur. But he's understanding me now because we was able to have that conversation of what happened to me before. And if he remembers days that he's seen me come in looking like how I came and he wanted to protect me. So those are the challenges that I went through. But to help people incarcerated is be a support system, because when we come out, we have nothing. We don't know what that looks like to start over. We don't know where to start. We don't know where to even go, right? So sometimes if you don't have a support system, it's really hard to even come into this world without documents, without work, without a house, without anything. And it's the most hardest because all your life you've been isolated in this one room that's cold, and you have this officers downgrading you every second they get a chance, and walking out the doors is like, oh, you'll be back in 6 months. So you always get this negativity, like, oh man, I probably will be back in 6 months, right? So you put in this in your head, it could lead to something different than what you expected. But to answer your story, yes, I think more of a listening ear, and the best you could support somebody in ways that can make their life better. Whether it's giving them a smile, giving them a resource that you might know of. And that's what was done to me. I came home, I was given a resource to Sanctuary for Families. From Sanctuary for Families, they started to expunge my cases. And I was able to become myself because I couldn't be a manager at Taco Bell because I had a family. And I was like, I didn't want to have a family, right? This is the things that this man put me through for me to catch this family. But I had to deal with that because of my past. All right. So I was being judged because of my criminal background. So just being a listening ear, find as much resources as you can to support those coming home. And just give grace. That's all I could say is just give grace and just kind of like put yourself in that person's shoes. And if you was in that person's shoes, will you judge? Will you want to be judged? Will you want to be discriminated? Will you want to be left to figure it out? Or would you want that support system? Even if it's from a stranger, sometimes it means the most than family. So that's my answer to that one.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if I answered it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that excellent question, Dr. Castro, and thank you, Jennifer, for the
No, you're welcome.
lovely response and genuine. I had a question from Santiago Ramirez, who actually is, I have to do a shout out to him because he inspired me to see everything a different way, along with Nashan Jackson. So Santiago Ramirez, I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question. And then,
okay, Jennifer, my name is Sandy, and I am formerly incarcerated as well. In sharing your story and life experiences through Exodus, Fortune Society, and the support groups that you coordinate, how how rewarding it is for you to hear how you have inspired others?
So it's actually very rewarding. It comes to a point that people come in, and right now, just in my job role model, and someone come in and be like, "Hey, Jen, because of you, you saved my life from getting back into prison. Because of you, I have an apartment now. Because of you, I have resources. Because of you, I have a job." And just that little bit of push, you saved the person I am. So, and then I had other times that, for human trafficking women in the support group, they would say, "Thank you for this group." That brought me some insight. That gave me a voice to finally be able to be okay to speak about it, because there's people out there that been through worse. I was recently in a domestic violence event, and I was a speaker there, and I spoke my past more into the traumas and how I experienced it. And then after I spoke, the girl came back. No, everybody was quiet. Every question was being answered. Nobody wanted to answer questions. I was the only one speaking, so I gave women at that moment courage to say it's okay to speak. And they didn't want to speak. They was letting me speak, and then eventually, in the end of that conversation, the first thing somebody said, they finally spoke and put their hand up, and I was like, "Wow, interesting, okay." And she said, "Jennifer, I want to thank you because I wasn't gonna speak today, because everything I've been through, it hurts." And she started crying, and she said, "But because of you speaking and your courage and your resilience, I'm speaking right now and I'm saying I'm tired of hurting. Help me not hurt no more." And we had a long conversation after that. And even after that, it made me feel good that I'm okay to give you a voice and to say that it's okay with what you've been through. That doesn't make you any difference. That doesn't make you any better. It's okay to have that voice to speak for yourself and have that courage and that resilience. So it always makes me feel great when I can get a positive feedback from an individual that either they've been incarcerated just like me, or they've been through domestic violence just like me, or human trafficking as well. So whatever conversation it comes across, but just having that feedback from somebody, it means a lot.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
I have two questions that are kind of related. One is about what would you tell your younger self? That's a really interesting question. What would it be if you're mentoring others, talking to young people? If you could tell your younger self a few things, what would they be? And then also in terms of the system, should prostitution be decriminalized? Is another question a student is asking. So those two, they're in the chat box.
Okay, I'm gonna read the second one because I didn't really get to hear the second one.
Okay.
Let me see.
Your younger self.
I can say
No,
it if you want.
I heard the younger self. I was gonna answer that one and just get back to the second one because I didn't hear the second one.
The second one, Liz, you can say it if you want.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for coming on here today and
You're welcome.
telling your story. I think you're very well spoken, and I appreciate it. So my question is, do you think the idea of decriminalizing prostitution might help or hurt women in a similar situation that you've been in?
Okay, so to answer your first question, what would I tell my younger self? I would tell, that's a good question, right? Because I don't want to take back of what I've been through, because I learned from it and it became me, the person I am today. But if I was to meet someone young and they would tell me that they're going through the same circumstances, what I would tell them is be patient. Like if they're going through the same thing as me, I would tell them when you're ready, it's time to leave, right? Because I don't want to feel like I'm forcing someone to leave a situation that they're not ready to leave. Right? It's a lot of women that goes through domestic violence and they stay in there for 10 years because they're not ready to leave or they don't know how to leave. And that's okay, but just having that support system means a lot because when they do decide to leave, they have the courage to leave when they're ready. But if I was to go back to the day of the highway, I think I will see more of the red flags. Because there were certain things that he told me, but because I was so naive, I didn't pay attention to them. And I think I would listen more to my parents, right? Because these are things that my parents warned me about, right? And because I was young and naive and just wanted to figure it out, I kind of ignored those signs. So for instance, going into the situation, he would tell me, do you want money or do you want to give me money? And I used to be like, huh? So I was always confused because I was never a street girl. I was always a girl that went to school, or if I wasn't in school, I was in the house all the time. So I was like, oh, what you mean about that? Like, I don't mind giving you money. And he would be like, okay, so then give it to me. Or we'll walk down the street and he will hold my hand and he will tell me, yo, these cars really love you. And then I will come on and say, but I don't care for them. I care for you. So just little signs like that, I didn't pay attention to acknowledge because I didn't have the experience of the streets or I didn't listen to my parents. I didn't understand it. I was naive to it. So I think it's more of listening to individuals and keeping that ear open and acknowledging the red flags that a person has because they will teach you right in front of you and you won't even notice. The red flags is all there for you. And sometimes we avoid those red flags because we fall in love or we think this person has good intent, but then they have a red flag that's so negative. For instance, for me, for now my relationships now, I know one of those questions was brought up to me earlier. For instance, for me, in my relationships now, if somebody was to yell at me a little too much or come aggressively, I wouldn't take it no more. Because I learned that even with a little aggression could lead to a smack. One smack, we would think there's nothing wrong with it, and it will lead to two. Then from two, it will lead to three. And a person forgiving, like, hey, I'm so sorry I'm doing this. It's just that I'm mad and I'm doing this. And we'll forgive because we love and we just have that genuine heart. As a woman, we take a lot. And as men too. But I'm more focusing on the women right now because we take way more than a lot of the guys. Usually the guys will come and they'll take a little bit and then they're easy to be like, yo, I'm not dealing with this. I'm off this. But because us women take a lot and we take a lot till we can't take anymore, we don't read those signs, you know? And then we will stick around hoping for change. And then that third slap become a punch. That fourth punch becomes a fifth punch. And then later on, you know, it's either you're dead, you're in a hospital, or you telling yourself, I can't do this no more because I thought he would change. So just read signs. And whenever you feel like something is not right, someone is not right, it's not feeling comfortable for you, it's okay to push back. And tell yourself, this is just not for me. So to me, that one is that. And I think your second question, you was mostly saying that if they take away, am I correct? If they take away human trafficking rights, would that harm society? Is that exactly what you meant? Or if they give you it?
It was do you think the idea of decriminalizing prostitution might help or hurt women in a similar situation that you had been in?
Making prostitution legal?
Yeah. I was trying to see how I could word it. It's kind of 50-50. The only reason why I say that is because if they make it legal, right, there's a lot of women that put themselves in a situation because of their circumstances, right? But they don't deal with guys. They was brought in through a friend. They didn't even know that they was doing it, and then they liked the money, and they did it for the money. And then felt later just. So to answer that, it could and it couldn't because it could because right now what they're working on a system is that pimping with prostitution could affect the pimp because the pimp usually that's the 50-50 on it because usually when prostitution, a woman decides to do a prostitution on her own legal terms, right? You're doing it for whatever reason you're doing it for. But when a man forces you into the system, it becomes a force and fear. So then if you was to make it legal, and a lot of guys decide process is legal now, so this, I can do this to the society for the woman that doesn't want to be forced into it. But then, you know, it will not affect the woman that wants to do it on their own, willing. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's a yes and no to that because it depends of the circumstances. Because it's gonna make pimps go out there more to make it more legalized. Because right now they're not out there as pimps using women to prostitute and get money, because right now the terms is if you ever get caught forcing any woman to do that, you're facing 10 years and better. But if they make it legal, they could automatically say, well, it's legal to prostitute, so I am not doing any harm. But then it will affect the women that want to do it on their own. And, you know, because of whatever circumstance they're going through, whether they're homeless, they on drugs, or they feel like it's just okay to do it because the money is good at that moment. But, you know, they don't look at the background to it. You know, you could catch diseases, you could catch disrespect, you know, you losing yourself as a woman. So it's a 50-50 to that answer.
Thank you so much. God bless.
You're welcome.
Those were great questions, Liz and Tanya. I was just wondering, again, to circle back to what we could do as students to be supportive. You mentioned working with Exodus and Fortune Society, so I guess students could help and help these organizations. So in what Exodus gave you a job, it changed your life. Maybe counseling from social work students or something like that. Do you see a role that students could play in helping the situation?
Of course. So any social worker is a therapist. So therapy is a big part of trauma. The reason why I say this because I was at therapy once, and it healed me in certain ways, right? Because it's speaking about what you've been through in your trauma, and therapy kind of brings out how did it start, how could it heal, and so yes, I think therapy does play a big part, but it depends how you say therapy to certain people. For instance, we have therapy in our program. I was telling you that we do interning in our program. For interns for therapy, and it's a big support. But then we don't try to call it therapy because some people look at it as I don't need therapy because I'm not crazy, and then we got to bring it up to them. It's not crazy. If you've been in prison, it's just like walking and talking to your best friend in prison, and walking around the yard and just having a conversation to be able to release what you're going through. And sometimes talking to a friend or a family member is not good because you will feel judged. Talking to a stranger, you could tell them your life and never see them again. So that's the way we break that down. But for women that's been domestic violence and impacted, sometimes we just want to know who's there to support us. It's more of the genuine love when it comes from therapy, right? Because a lot of people don't trust in therapy because they don't feel like it's healing. They feel like it makes them look crazy. So it's kind of how you bring up the conversation to a person that's going through something to make them understand that I'm here to listen. I'm here to help. I'm here to support. Take as long as you need. And just being that person to say, we don't even have to talk about nothing. If you just want to sit there and just stare at me, we can do that too. Because it makes a person want to be able to trust you in the process. To say, like, how can I trust this stranger with all my feelings and what I've been going through since I've been going through all of this, whether it's incarceration, domestic violence and human trafficking, or anything else, substance use, anything. It's kind of just, how can you make a person trust you into that state where that person could open up to you about the weirdest things that they won't even expect to be like, oh, wow, I would never tell nobody that, but I feel comfortable enough to telling you. Because you always have good feedback. You look like you understand, even though you probably don't. You hear me, and everything you tell me is to support me and make me a better version of me. So I feel like social work always comes along with anything that has to do with trauma. And I feel like this world right now is full of trauma, whether it's from substance use, child abuse, incarceration, especially, is very high in domestic violence. And human trafficking is one of the four highest traumas that's going on right now. The fifth, because child abuse as well is very high. So yes, I feel like therapy is just how you work therapy instead of saying I'm your therapist and I'm here to help you, because sometimes, like I said, therapy could seem like I'm crazy and I need somebody to talk to and I'm not crazy, so I don't even want a therapist. So it just kind of be able to say like, hey, listen, I'm not your therapist. I'm someone that's here to support you. I'm someone that's here to listen. I'm someone that's here to give you feedback. Like, you don't have to look at me as your therapist, And it's also understanding that you're not here for the money and you're here to really save somebody's life. So social work is a very big field in this world and is very needed.
Yeah, just being present, being loving,
Being authentic. Mm-hmm.
Even sitting in silence. I totally appreciate that. So I have another question, but I want to ask if anybody else has a question, more questions? No, okay.
If anybody has questions after Christina, you can always email me and I can answer those questions. Because eventually, sometimes people just probably need to take some time to think about what they want to ask.
Sure,
and that's also fine.
You gave us a lot to think about, that's for sure. You don't have any, because I have a lot. So I keep thinking back to that moment where you were selling the water, and I can't stop thinking about it. So here you are, like, I feel like school could have played a really big part. Could you, could you have envisioned your education being a turning point? Like, if you had a different education and teachers that were more supportive, I guess it would have made a difference. What do you think?
Oh yeah. I don't regret my child, but I do regret that I didn't finish education. Because even though I'm furthering my education, I'm doing college and GED courses right now, so I could get my GED and college credits at the same time. But it's still hard, and just getting that one degree to get to the bachelor's and master's is still hard because I haven't been in school in over 17 years. So yes, if I can go back, I will find a better support system or find a different outlet that I didn't know that I know now, like daycares and, stuff like that I didn't know before because I was too young to even know where the next step to do. Yes, I will definitely finish. I was on my last grade when I dropped out. So I was on 12th grade in the middle of it when I left because I had to be a parent. So yes, I totally regret it. And I tell every young individual, even my own kids, education is very important, especially nowadays. Because nowadays, every good job, if you want to make a high-paying salary, you need a bachelor's, a master's, and you're gonna get paid good. Because if you have a high school diploma, you could get low salary, and it's nothing you can push. So I feel that every moment of my life, and it's just like, wow, if I could have just got this high school diploma, and this time that I've been putting into my high school diploma, I could have had all this time in and almost at my master's already.
Yeah.
So yeah, it plays a big part. I feel like, if I would have been probably in school, I probably wouldn't have been selling waters because I was in school. I was busy in school. But because I was young and I didn't know any better, and all I wanted was to make sure that my kid had Pampers and milk, and we was going through an eviction, and I didn't know where else to go. It played a big part of not me having my education level.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, Tanya wrote, what does your current village and support system look like? Like, how are you getting support right now? That's another great question, Tanya. And I guess that'll be our last question. How are you getting support now?
So right now, I have a lot of support actually. My mom actually really supports me. My brother, my sister, me just knowing everything that I've been through. I know a lot of ways now. So it supports me in a lot of ways because I have my family that's closer now than it was before. Because before, my family was suffering. We was all young. We didn't know our next move. You know, my sister wasn't living with us. She was already outside and, you know, doing her own life. My brother was, you know, too young to even support me. My mom was, you know, going into an eviction, a shelter process. So now my brother has his own place, his own family, his own situation. He's in a better state now. He also became a full-blown Christian. So his belief in God is way stronger and supportive. My sister lives in Connecticut. She also became a full-blown Christian with 5 kids. And then it's me with 2 kids. I have my own part. So before I didn't have any of that. I was too young to even get a bank account. I was too young to even know how to save money and know what that looks like. I was too young to even know like what does having my own apartment looks like. It was afraid, right? Because what would I do with an apartment? I don't know. I always lived with my mom my whole life. So even those steps, having parents meant a lot because we were still young and trying to navigate what life looked like without our parents. And I didn't have that chance to say I'm with my mama till I'm 19 or 20, and then when I figure out my route, I'm just gonna go. She was kicked out, and I had a family, and I had to be kicked out because I was old enough and I didn't have to go to the shelter with her anymore. So that it was forced for me to grow up and learn the trials and tribulations of finding what that support looked like. So now my support is way better. I have an 18-year-old son, so he takes care of my son on days that I do decide to go to work. Or if I can't get my son from school, which I'm doing right now, you know, like if I can't get him, my son will. He's 18, so he could pick him up now. If I have to go on vacation or to do something for 3 days, my kids is old enough to know what is good or bad, but at the same time, know that, hey, like my mom is okay with saying, I'm gonna go and stay with the little one and y'all gonna be okay. And you know, so that is a big support system now. So before everybody was going through the same thing I was going through, and I couldn't really lean on nobody because everybody was trying to figure out their way. My brother was in and out of you know, being in the gangs and in and out of incarceration in a young age as well. We both did actually 3 years together. He went into prison, and 2 months later, I went to prison. When I came home, he came home 3 months later. So even through that process, my father was in the shelter, a substance use shelter for inpatient. My mom was in and out the shelter system, and my sister lived her own life with her family in Connecticut. So we didn't have a support. Like, what did that look like? We all figuring it out.
Wow.
So now everybody got to figure it out, and family means a lot to us now. So we stick together harder than ever. So
Wow.
stronger.
A great inspiring story. Thank you so much, Jennifer Mendez. We
Thank you,
really
Christina.
appreciate you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, Christina. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you have any questions, feel more than free to answer any questions. Send Christina to it. She will send me an email. I will reply as soon as I can to your with answers. I know it was a lot being told. Y'all probably have a lot of questions, just not at the moment. But feel free to also, and just know that your worth means a lot. Continue to grow. Don't let no one pull you down. Don't let no one stop you. You are powerful. You are a person. You are somebody. And no one in this world could take that away from you. Whether it's your parents, you're the only one that can take that away from you. And don't take that power away from yourself.
Wow. Emily says, thank you for sharing your story, a very powerful one. God bless you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate you. God bless everybody. And, you know, always keep the faith strong. And if y'all don't believe in yourselves. That's the most powerful word you can think of.